Born in Salford in 1986 at what was then called Hope Hospital. By the time I could walk, my parents had moved us to Bolton, and that's where the story really starts. A town full of football, pride, and slowly fading glory, and a kid who just didn't get the memo. You're listening to Play and Record. I'm Al English, and this is the story of a life shaped by music. So growing up in Bolton in the 90s, football was everywhere. Kids in the class, everyone was into football, playing it every single break time, and importantly back then, Bolton were in the Premier League. Now, when you look back on that in 2025, it seems impossible. That sort of gave the town like this sense of pride. There was a lad in my class and he used to have like a loose leaf folder, and him and his granddad used to like cut out all the articles in the newspapers about Bolton and put them in these little plastic wallets, you know, and I was like, wow. So I started doing it to copy him basically, but I wasn't really cutting out the right articles, and so all mine were about like Arsenal and Chelsea, because I wasn't really interested in football, which you're about to find out. You know, because one of the things you always do when you're kids is you try and fit in, don't you? I think that's a given. And some people, you know, just always try and fit in, even in their adulthood. But I think especially when you're a child, it's important. You want to fit in. You know, you've all got the same pair of trainers, you've all got the same football shirt, same bloody pencil cases, and you know, it gets a bit silly, doesn't it, at times? And you know, you just sort of get sucked into the, well, maybe I can get into it. Maybe I'll try and get into it. And I did. I kept trying to get into it. Like, my dad would take me to games. So back then it was Burndon Park, which is now a humongous Asda. I was far more interested even then in just people watching than watching the actual game. You know, it was like going to a live action soap opera, but like much louder, with more anger, more alcohol, and hot dogs, let's be fair. And yeah, I think my dad was like, it was pretty clear to him that I wasn't really interested in it at all. And there was several experiences like this. You know, Bolton would have some big match in like the Championship or the Coca-Cola Cup or whatever it was, and we'd get invited to a house to watch it all, and I'd be far more interested in doing something else. And you know, it was, yeah, the signs were there, it was obvious, and by the end I just started to get really bored of it and not trying to fit into it anymore, because I think you just go, no, I've tried, it doesn't work. No, there's no point banging my head against a brick wall anymore. So I just kind of like forgot about it all. It's funny, you know, there's an episode of Frasier. Remember Frasier from the 90s? Frasier's dad is like big into sports. Him and his brother trying to connect with the dad a bit more and do things with each other. And they end up going to a basketball game, reluctantly, but they go. And then I think they end up having like a game of I Spy or something, and really winding him up. So it's quite relatable, that scene.
I spy with my little eye something beginning with V.
Vagabonds.
No.
Vittles.
No.
Vienna sausages.
Where do you see Vienna sausages?
Oh, I thought maybe that vendor might... Oh, vendor.
Excellent, guys. Your turn. Would you cut it out? I'm trying to watch the game. Just playing I Spy there. I know, it's distracting.
So I had this slow realization about football. It just didn't do it for me. It was exhausting, you know, the social camouflage that went along with it. The Bolton Wanderers kits won, not really with pride, but as a prop to blend in. And also, I've got to be honest, I was jealous and envious of the other kids who seemed to get something from football that I didn't. It wasn't the popularity that I craved, you know. It was that sense of belonging to something, that joy and pride, and I was just like, what are you getting from this that I'm just not seeing or getting? It just seems so easy and natural to them, whereas I was actively trying to like it and I still couldn't like it. Yeah, so what I didn't really realise at the time was that not clicking with football, it wasn't really a failure. It was just a detour. I was heading somewhere else entirely. But first, about this point, I somehow became interested in basketball.
Michael Jordan's getting
Consistently game in and game out, but against the Bulls he does. Here's Jordan, he blows by Pearson, jammed it down. He blew.
I can remember feeling a much stronger appeal to basketball than anything I'd ever felt with football. I can't pinpoint exactly where this began. I've racked my brains and I've tried to think what was it that exactly got me interested in basketball, and I can't remember. I think generally it was a combination of finding the game a lot more entertaining to watch than football. It was a lot more like there was a fluidity to it that football didn't have, and there was much less stop and start, and you know, it just seemed almost like music, which is weird because that's obviously what the center of this podcast is about, you know. But the game itself, as strange as it is talking about this, it seemed to have some sort of almost rhythm to it. That's probably the best way I can put it, and it just really appealed to me. But not only that, it was the culture as well that sort of that went along with it. You know, it was the vests and the designs and the music that they played, and the trainers, and just the whole sort of like culture that went along with it. And I was seeing snapshots of that on TV, and obviously you're pretty limited in the 90s to what you were seeing on terrestrial TV, especially if you didn't have like Sky. I didn't have Sky. A lot of my friends had Sky, so I was able to like see snippets of American culture and basketball and on the sports channels on there, and you know, it was really appealing to me.
Right now, let's go right over to JB with Michael Jordan.
So my dad, he stopped taking me to the football matches, and he started taking me to the 9X Arena, which is now the AO Arena. It was until recently the biggest arena in Manchester. The Manchester Giants were Manchester's own basketball team. I'm not even sure if they're still going. I'm sure they are in some sort of formation. I don't know. I should check actually if they're still going. But I presume they are. I'm going to hope that they're still going. I can remember going. It is a very large stadium, and I can remember it wasn't even a quarter full, which was baffling to me. You know, to me it was a much better game. But no one was interested in it whatsoever. Like, I'd tell people about it, I'd talk about it, and they were going, basketball? What are you interested in that for? Get on the football, son. You know, like, it just didn't connect with people from my town at all, or seemingly people from England, really, probably as a whole. And it still doesn't, not to a football standard at all, 20 years down the line. But to me, it appealed to me. So yeah, it was called the 9X Arena, I think, back then. Remember 9X? I think that was the precursor to cable and wireless. God, I'm sad. You're listening to Play and Record. I'm Al English, and this is the story of a life shaped by music. So, like I said, I can't really pinpoint what got me interested in basketball, but I have this memory as well of seeing this kid walking around one summer, and he had this, the classic red Chicago Bulls vest, and I was like, wow. I'd never seen one in the flesh. I'd only seen one on TV, and I'd certainly not seen one walking around Bolton. So yeah, and after a few months of begging and a few more months of searching, I got my very own Chicago Bulls vest, Jordan 23, paid for by my dear old grandma, and I was about to join a local basketball club. So I just want to set the scene a little bit, talk about the area where I grew up. It was called Bromley Cross, and it's a nice area of Bolton, and it's got better over the years. Certainly has got better. Back then, it was a bit different. There was a big mix of people back then. So you had sort of like the posher end of folk. New build houses, brand new high spec Ford Escorts, timeshare holiday homes in Abersock, living right alongside the not so fortunate, so in the schools and on the streets there was a mad mix of people really back then. And anyone who remembers living around there, or probably in like up north at that sort of time, maybe even down south as well, the bus stops for some reason used to be mobbed, absolutely mobbed. People sat down, just congregating in the bus stops. Forgotten offspring of like the underclass, I suppose. And they used to strike fear in the hearts of many people trying to make their safe passage to the local co-op, a place that I would later find employment, but we're not ready for all of that yet. I actually remember my dad receiving some lip off one of the bus stop gang, clearly the ringleader of the group. He responded by picking him up by the scruff of his neck and pushing his head into the corner frame of the bus stop, a move I thought would trickle down to me and cause problems, but it actually did the opposite, which was nice. Social street justice, I suppose. I still say hello to him, actually, the lad who got choke slammed into the corner of the bus stop. We still say hello to each other, which is nice. So there was certainly 100% there were worse areas to grow up, and I'm not going to make out like it was a ghetto or it was like a really rough place to grow up. It had its bad elements, of course it did, but it's definitely better now, 30 years down the line, than it was then, without a doubt. The area did have its issues back then. So I was robbed twice as a child, it's by other kids, not like by, not at knife point or anything like that. It was just, give us your money type thing, So I also got robbed of my very first mobile phone when I was about 14 as well, which I bought off one of my friends, and I actually got that back, I think, with the help from my dad, which was good. But yeah, so that's just sort of sets a scene about kind of what it were like. I was also threatened by an angry man at roadside with a hammer when I was about 12 walking home, which was, that was an eye-opener. But yeah, not really getting into the whole, it was terrible, because it wasn't. These were just isolated incidents in an otherwise, pretty happy childhood. One summer, I sort of became inseparable with a lad. I think he was 1 year older than me, and he was from the local council estate around the back of my house. And I think my mum was a little bit concerned about our friendship at first, because, he was seemingly allowed out from morning until night without any, communication or anything, because there were no mobile phones back then. I think I was about 10 at the time of this. But regardless, I was largely left to my own devices that summer, as my mum had enough. She had enough to contend with, working 2 jobs, keeping us going. My dad lost his job, and he was having an ongoing battle with alcoholism. Me and this lad, we were somehow allowed to dig a gigantic hole out of sheer boredom in my back garden, and they didn't even seem to notice. That's how occupied they were at the time. But yeah, this friendship would soon turn sour. We kept fighting with each other all the time, and it culminated in a very nasty fight involving who would fill up a water pistol. It's a perfectly normal thing to have a fight about, as I'm sure you can agree. There was a lot of derelict mills quite near our house, which have now been converted into high-end apartments and flats, but back then they were all derelict. So we used to go exploring, and there was obviously needles and stuff we used to walk past. When you're seeing that when you're 10-year-old, you don't even know what it is. There was all that stuff going on, and we used to go exploring in these mills. And there was a lad called Johnny, who's still a good friend of mine, and there was one single tower, and I think it fell down, or it was demolished first, because it was so dangerous. And it was part of a bigger building, but the bigger building had already been demolished, leaving this soul swaying tower, and one side of this tower was completely open to the elements. So we entered this building for reasons unknown, sheer boredom, and then climbed the staircase all the way up to the top, and then when the stairs finished, the ladders started, and then any normal person would have turned back at this point, but we climbed the ladders that were like caked in pigeon shit, and just went all the way to the top. And you know, why do you do stuff like that when you're kids? You know, I've got a 10-year-old daughter now, and if I found out she was doing something like that now, I'd hit the roof. But yeah, my parents definitely didn't know about that one at the time. They would have taken a stand to that one. But yeah, some of the mad stuff you do when you were kids. So, to finish, going back to the basketball, it was not to last. There was elements of it that I absolutely loved, but playing the game, I was crap. I was shit. I quickly lost interest in it, and yeah, my point is of sort of like telling you what the area was like. There was some other lads in the basketball group. They took an instant dislike to me. I think it's probably because I had some shiny new Jordan 23 shirt on. Unbeknownst to them, that was like saved up for by my dear old gran. It wasn't like put on some company card or something. But yeah, I don't think that did me any favours. And the rest was history. I got bullied out of there, to be honest. So, yeah, tried football. Didn't work. Then I went to try basketball. Liked it a lot more, but it still didn't work. So, it left me in this sort of what next episode of my life. What next? Join me for part 2, the next step in the journey.
Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey.